So I woke up this morning and I felt called to share a couple of quick reflections that I had just upon waking up about integrity. So my name is Makambe, and the thought I had this morning was my name is not my name is borrowed. I was named after my paternal grandmother. She was the OG Makambe Simamba. And yeah, the culture of naming someone after someone in my culture has been a really big thing. And so there's also something of like, the integrity or the intention of like, I really loved my mom, or I really loved this person, or this aunt, or this family member was very dear to me. So I want the good parts and the lovely things that that person had or displayed to me to be passed on to the child who I'm giving the name. So when I think to myself, okay, my name is Makambe, but that's not my name. Like it feels like my name, but it also feels borrowed, or that I'm not the original holder of the name. I just all of a sudden felt a really great responsibility about anything that comes after the name Makambe. So my grandma Makambe passed away many years before I was born. She passed away before my parents even met. So I never got the chance to meet her in the flesh, unfortunately. But she's here in spirit. And I just have been meditating and thinking about her and connecting to her because my grandmother connection right now exists so much with my maternal grandmother, who is Ngela, who's my sister. That's my sister's name, actually. So that grandma and we've met, and like I write her letters every morning. Like the nature of that spiritual connection is clear, and I know when she's talking, and I know kind of like how to connect with her and how to access her. But my grandma Makambe, I haven't quite articulated what that is for us, and so I am leaning into that investigation and that relationship, and doing my best to try and get to know her, and let her come through from the spirit realm. And I just woke up today with this awareness and sense of responsibility and reminder that like my name is not my name is her name. So anytime that I represent her, which is literally with anything that I do, it's my responsibility to do that with integrity. That definition of integrity comes from me and me alone. What I think is good and right and how I should behave and what is moral is something of my own making, and it's of my own code. And we all have that, by the way. I just think that we can all maybe lean into whatever that truth is for us intentionally, but we all have that. And I think that we all need to you don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything. I'm not your mom. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I'm just saying, I think that there's something beautiful in every single one of us being able to just sit there and just think about like, what are the things that are important to you? What does honor look like to you? What does loyalty, respect, love of others, love of self, like what does that look like to you? And I feel like I'm always engaging in that practice, and always really grateful for the moments when I'm not engaging in that, and then I'm reminded that I can engage in that. And I love the idea that also that sort of like my little personal honor code can change. And I love seeing as my values grow and sometimes widen, sometimes narrow around certain things, and sometimes evolve. I love just that exploration, and I offer that it's a really fun and can be a very empowering it can be a very empowering experience to allow yourself to lean into that and to really make your own mission statement, make your own code of ethics, make your own decisions about what is right for you and what is not, because at the end of the day, it has to feel right in your own spirit and it has to feel right in your own heart. And I think that's what can be tricky sometimes, and that's where a lot of folks get like harmed in like certain, like for example, religious institutions, because what, for example, the church might be saying is right and wrong. Like you're like, okay, number 1 to number 6, I fuck with. Number 7, I actually think that's trash. I don't agree with that. Number 8 to number 9, maybe in this circumstance, like I believe that we all have the opportunity to do that for ourselves. And I think that I think that we have not just the right to do that for ourselves, but I think that we have the responsibility. I don't like feeling like I'm telling people what to do, but let me just tell you what to do. And I think it's actually okay, beautiful, and also we can't help the fact that that's going to be different for all of us. I'm thinking about this for a number of reasons, including just like watching. I'm actually not watching that much news, but more than usual, and just like seeing, like, wow, okay, the political climate of the West and what that's looking like right now, how that's manifested, what the truths are of like these Western colonial governments, and uh, there's like a sense of like shock of like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Like, is this is not the America that we knew, and just like I'm taking all that in and feeling lots, just so much like feeling a lot of actually empathy and compassion for folks who didn't know that they were putting themselves in that situation. Um, I'm a person who's not living in the United States, so like I have a particular view on it, and um, yeah, my view is my own view, but I'm just thinking like, damn, like there's just like a lot of energy shifting right now. There's a lot of things that are changing. There's a lot of norms that are shifting, and there's also certain norms and certain things that have always been that situate. Like there's certain things that have always been the T that we're now just seeing on the forefront, and in this hierarchy of privilege that we are all on this ladder, and sometimes we're here, sometimes we're here, sometimes we're here, depending on which room we're in. Sometimes we're here, depending on which country we're in. Sometimes we're here, depending on which age we are. Sometimes we slip down or go up, or how we look that day, or how we present, or what our gender is, or literally privilege. I know that people don't like the P word sometimes, and it stresses people out, because sometimes folks who are like, I've heard this, for example, from white folks who like grew up poor, let's say, and they're like, I didn't grow up with any privilege. And I'm like, Auntie, I understand you, but I understand what you are trying to articulate. But what I am trying to share is that like we all have privilege, and I think it's important to analyze when that privilege is benefiting us and when we don't have it, and when we have a little bit of it, and what tools or realities or parts of our identities that we have access to that we can leverage, hopefully in ways that feel good, for the things that feel right and important to us, which hopefully are things that are like right and also healthy for the collective. Whoa, that was a whole word. Didn't know I was going there today. But anyway, watching the news, like just like a little bit of American news, and watching sort of what I consider to be like, oh, this is the network, or these are the networks that lean very, 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 very much left. And then just to see what the other homies were saying, like engaging in some of that and being like, oh, these are the homies who lead so much in the other way, and just seeing the difference in how things were spoken about. And I know where I exist. I know where my values kind of exist. Like I know where on that spectrum, I know where I'm more likely to trust and less likely to trust, and I know that that's imperfect, and I know that there's like a lot we could unpack, because like I also feel like I don't trust nobody, but just seeing this thing that feels like such a decay, and seeing what feels like what is just like a complete lack of diplomacy and a lack of manners, reckoning with the idea of like, actually this has always been like this, but it's just that it hasn't been outside. It hasn't been bold like that. You know what I mean? There have been safeguards and other folks who at least have had given us some semblance of like, okay, and when you talk to people, you talk with manners. And when you deal with people, you try to do it with a sense of common sense. And even those folks, we still had very much reason and need, I think, to call in and criticize some of some or many of those policies. But now we're dealing with a group of uncles who just don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. They don't care at all. They're going to do what they want to do. They're going to say what they're going to say, and they don't care who they hurt. So I was just feeling like I've been feeling an interesting sense of grief, where I feel like I've had an awareness of the fact that these really big political systems, especially when you think about how, so many Western nations, the United States, Canada, these colonial nations, like how they were founded and like what was problematic about that. There's a lot of like rot at the root of these systems that we all find ourselves in now, and continue to also like, it's like we're upholding the system at the same time trying to dismantle the harm, but it's just like, it's a whole thing. All that being said, not that things were perfect before by any means, but I do remember growing up in a time where it felt like, okay, the president of this particular nation would at least pretend, just have some manners. The idea of diplomacy, the idea of that there was some sort of decorum or class. And I know that that notion can be a little complicated, like a little bit, but I'm just feeling this interesting wave of grief around, man, like if we lose the idea of like dignity, if we lose the idea of decorum that's rooted in a real place, if we lose the idea of honor, where does that leave us? Right now, I'm working on a Shakespeare play, and the experience of being in my body and having done the work that I've done in the last 10 years, but especially 5 years, and like working in this like very big, predominantly white institution, and like engaging in this work has been like super interesting. And I'm happy to jam about that and share some reflections on that another day, another time, if you want to hear them. Actually, even if you don't want to hear them, I might still share them because it's my internet and I do what I want. But yeah, I'm just thinking about like as you're like sort of analyzing Shakespearean text, in our process, we spent a really juicy 1 week dealing with the loveliest like Shakespeare expert who just like did a really good job of explaining, okay, so when Uncle William Shakespeare wrote this in 1599 or 1598, yeah, we spent a lot of time understanding or learning just some great context about like, okay, so the year that this play was written, what was actually happening in England at the time? What were some of the conversations happening around land, around nature, around climate change, around ideas of family inheritance, around the way in which the folks who were on that little island, how were they interacting with not only each other, but also just like the earth, and what were the concerns? So what were there also like the different cultures that were existing within that time period? So for example, this is a really basic one, but things like the idea between city people and country people, and like there being distinct differences in the way in which those two spaces existed, related to each other, understood one another, and operated, has been really, really fascinating and interesting, because it also reminds me that like if homeboy Uncle Shakespeare, wow, not me about to stand up for Shakespeare, but like if homeboy Uncle William Shakespeare was like writing about genuinely his times, like that's why I don't really fuck with it when people are like, I don't want to make art that's political. Like, hello, like, hello, everything's political, including the fact that you think that that's a statement that makes sense, but that's a rant for another time. My point is, within Shakespeare, I learned sort of in one of like a little sort of like text class that I had, where we had the privilege of like just somebody who, man, people are smart. So one of the things that we were talking about, our instructor, he had shared that like in our modern day, we use something like 7 phrases to express our point. Not me, myself, me, I'm long-winded, but the idea that like Shakespeare people use between 14 and 21 on average phrases, or was it words, to express a point. The idea of the long thought, right, versus the short thought. The short thought. And it was interesting to just be like, yeah, we don't have the attention spans to do that no more. Like we're so instant gratification-y and we move so fast, like da, 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 da. So it was interesting to just like remember that, so that like as an actor, when I'm interpreting this text, I was sometimes struggling with being like, what the fuck is she talking about now? Like, why is she still talking? Like, I don't understand. Like, it took me a while to understand that there's a long thought. So this whole monologue is actually one thought, and she's just taking her time to get us there. Whereas like in contemporary speak, we don't really do that in quite the same way. But in a lot of these long thoughts, in a lot of these sort of Shakespearean conversations, there are a lot of conversations that, yes, there's the action that's happening in the play, right? There are the specific plot points that move the narrative forward, yes, but then at the same time, within those things, there's also all these moments of like, I don't know if it's useful to think of them as moments of pause, especially as an actor, because I'm also trying to make sure that everything that you're saying is driving the story forward. But sometimes it kind of feels like these moments where it's just like, okay, these characters are trying to achieve this thing, and then they have this moment where they're like, let's reflect on the idea of fortune. Let's reflect on the idea of wit. Let's reflect on this metaphor or philosophy or thing about life, right? And so within those sort of moments of reflection, there's a lot of things that have to do with like honor, dignity. Yeah, just the idea of honor, the idea of doing what is right, and the idea of just like morals, that there are moral arguments. Like I think of Hermione's monologue from Winter's Tale. Oh, that monologue. Sir, spare your thoughts. The bug which you would fright me with I seek. To me can life be no commodity. Hey, the crown and comfort of my life, your favor, I do feel it gone, though I know not how it went. I digress. Yeah, the idea of moral arguments, that like, if you were beefing with someone, one of your tactics was to use morals, right? And how the idea of morals and right and wrong, and like how that just like can sometimes exist in a different way today. Like when it feels like the powers that be are like morals, schmorals, like throwing that out and throwing the idea of like dignity and honor out. I think, because I feel like, to me, when you analyze these ideas of like integrity, dignity, honor, I think there's also a big part of the question in terms of like considering the like treat others the way you would like to be treated, right? I think that is often the such like a quick and surefire way to sort of be like, okay, is this the right thing to do or not in the situation? But if you're treating people not the way you want to be treated, you might be an asshole. Surprise, surprise. Like if you don't want to be treated that way, even in a situation where you're wrong, if you fuck up, if somebody fucks up, right? The way that you deal with that person who has fucked up, even if you're technically morally right, you still have to treat them the way you would like to be treated when you fuck up, because you will and you do, and you always have and you always will. Anyway, talk about long thoughts. Here we are again. But the idea of integrity and dignity and honor, and like, I've just been craving a little review and a little refresher of what that is for myself. I've been craving a little bit of an investigation, and I'm just like really trying to show up for the world and show up for myself in ways that are truly in alignment and truly in dignity. And it's hard. So for example, the thing that I was thinking about today is like gossip, because Makabe's mama, she likes spilling tea. She likes to spill a little bit of tea. And I think that it's healthy sometimes to just like sometimes you do need to rant, sometimes you need to get the poison out. And like, if you don't like somebody or you don't like something, I don't think there's any mileage in pretending that that is not true. So I think that finding safe and healthy ways to express those thoughts and process those thoughts is important. But there's a difference between that and just like dragging someone for the sake of dragging them. And I was like, I think I'm feeling called to like clean up some of my behavior and energy in that regard. And I just thought of my grandma, this lovely spirit who I never met in person, but I have her name and a little bit of her face, and I just felt like when I go outside the house and I carry myself in a certain way, there's so much that I can't control. People are not always going to like me. They're delusional. I'm delightful. But like, the reality is like, not everybody's gonna vibe with me. Not everybody's gonna fuck with me. Not everybody's gonna understand me. And sometimes me, my good self, even though I'm incredible and delightful, I'm also gonna fuck up, and people are not always going to get like vibe with me. And that's life. But I also just do feel extra aware of the fact that like, yeah, even though that's the case, there is actually quite a lot that I do have control over, and that is how I behave, and making sure that my behavior, the way that I put myself out in the world, is in alignment with what's important to me and what matters to me. So that if/when somebody's auntie or uncle comes out from sideways saying some shit, and they might and they will, especially since I'm about to get famous on you hoes. So yeah, someone, you know, when I get famous and then the people in the shade room are gossiping about me. When they're gossiping about me, making memes about me, it's important for me to be able to know if I'm in alignment with myself, right? So for some people, that they'll talk about that accountability to God. I never used to really, what we'll unpack my Christian trauma in another video, but like, I never really used to understand when people talk about my God or doing this for the grace of God or in alignment with God. I get it now. But like, for me, the thing that feels really grounding is just to think of like my namesake, and it's the woman who gave my father life and therefore helped to give me life. And I want that when people say her name, I want good things to come after it. That, from the little I've been able to learn about her, is what people said about her. That she was kind, that she had a sense of fairness, that she had a sense of softness and generosity. And I wish to embody all of those qualities in my own way. And I think she would want me to be myself. Like, I don't need to be somebody who I'm not. I am those things, but there's something about the beauty of the way that my aunties and uncles speak and have spoken about my grandma Makambe that I think is so beautiful, that I want people to speak about me like that when I die. And now that she has died and I'm alive and I'm the Makambe who is representing the name, even in my aliveness, I want people to speak well of me. And I want, when they speak well of me, that wellness is earned, that I deserve it, that when people say my name and they say good words after it, that those things are true, and that I am embodying those things. Now, it's not really about other people's opinions necessarily, though I have framed this realization through that. It's connected to other people's opinions for sure, because I think that some of those opinions, when we know who to listen to, do reflect our truth back to us, for better or for worse. But I just thought to myself, like, I do not want to misrepresent my grandmother. I will not. That means What does that mean? Today, in this moment, what that means is doing my very level best to be honest, thanking people for when they do good or their best or when they support and meaning it. It looks like bringing a sense of integrity and purpose to my work, to my role, to my role. What I mean is like, yeah, I'm in a Shakespeare right now. And yeah, stepping into this work at this time for me has had, like, I've bumped up against a couple of things in my spirit that I'm grateful to be working through and exploring and learning about myself through. But like, I want to bring integrity to my Celia. I'm an As You Like It. I want to bring truth and authenticity to her. I want to forgive people and really forgive them. I want to see the best in others. I want to have compassion for people even when they fucked up and even when they've hurt me. I want to be fun and enjoy life, and I want to bring joy into the rooms that I'm in, and I want to also be honest and to put myself in situations and spaces that are safe enough that when the expression of joy is not the true thing for me, that I can also be held and understood in those spaces and can show up authentically in whatever is true. I want to be honest. I want to be productive. I want to do things that are generative and nourishing for myself and for people around me. And also, it's actually about being very boundaried. So the biggest aha I actually found was that, like, I also will not let anybody disrespect me. Because it's one thing when I'm Makambe myself, but you know that little trick that we can always play on ourselves where it's like, if you don't know if somebody's mistreating you or if it's too bad or you kind of don't know where to draw the boundary, you put someone else in your shoes. Like, so for say for example, you are in a relationship and you feel like your man is acting raggedy and you're kind of staying and trying to justify some of this behavior, but you're not sure if that's actually the move, and you get confused about like, oh fuck, like, am I gonna be throwing this away? And just dismissing it? Am I being too hard on these issues or these things that I don't like? Versus, no, I should just like stay and work through it. Like, when you're having a sort of a existential crisis in that regard, the trick is like, if my friend was in this situation, what would I advise her? If my little sister was in this situation, what would I advise her? If my daughter was in this situation, what would I advise her? Right? I just feel this strong impulse of like, I'm not gonna let anybody talk to me crazy. I'm not gonna let anybody disrespect me. I'm not gonna let anybody throw me shitty energy and project things onto me and me absorb that and take that because I am Makambe. I'm the Makambe representative sent from the Makambe nation in the spirit realm. Ooh, that kind of gives me goosebumps because I'm like, oh, how many other Makambes are there? Like, who was she named after? Yeah, that's gonna be a fun thing to explore. This is gonna sound like such a crazy, weird, dark thought. It's not, but I'm like, gosh, like, I can't wait to die so I can go to the spirit realm and hang out with my grandma. Like, I have so many questions and I'm just like so curious to learn all these parts of myself that I think I'm only gonna understand or like reconnect with when I'm in non-physical. To be clear, I'm not trying to die anytime soon. I've got shit to do. But the idea of like reconnecting with my lineage and ancestry is fucking thrilling because I just like, energetically, I know a lot of information, like it's in my heart, and also like I have stories from people, and like there's a certain amount of like family and like also history of my tribe that I know, but it's just scratching the surface. Anyway, all that is to say, I don't want people to talk to me crazy. I don't want people to disrespect me, and I will not be here to absorb any shit that I'm not meant to absorb. And that's not to say that I should be closed off to feedback, constructive feedback. It's not to say that if somebody says something harmful or does something harmful that they are not worth my forgiveness, but it does make you stand up a little straighter when you realize that you're not just standing up for you, you're actually standing up for someone. This is crazy because I'm like, I feel this strong impulse of how I need to stand up for my grandmother, who's not even my parent, who's my grandparent, who I never met in this life. I just feel like I need to stand up straight. I need to protect her. Not that she needs my protection, but does she not deserve that as a person who has the privilege of carrying her name? Before I was born, my mom has shared with me that she actually wanted to name me Ngela. Ngela is my mom's mom. Makambe is my dad's mom. And that was the agreement. But I think last minute, they beefed. Mom and dad beefed. And I guess dad won. So like dad got to name me. And so mom named my younger sister Ngela. And I actually think, you know, it's funny to look back. I'm like, oh, my mom must have been so upset, like, about that beef. She was like, we agreed. This little girl was going to be Ngela. And then dad pulled shenanigans at the end. But I think I'm supposed to be Makambe, and I think my little sister's supposed to be Ngela. I'm sure of it. And we're both connected to both grandmothers, obviously, but like, I am Makambe. I know that is my right name. I'm positive. And so because I know that, and I've gone through this like journey of growing up in these very like, these very predominantly white institutions, including when I lived in Zambia, including like when I was in my own land, you know, and feeling like I wanted a different name and watching American TV. And I was sharing this with my castmates the other day at lunch. I was like, fuck, like, back like in 5th grade, 6th grade, man, the name Kathy had me in a chokehold. Like I just wanted to be named Kathy, and I would like fantasize. I'm like, oh, Kathy with a C, Kathy with a K, you know? And I just wanted a different name than Makambe. And now I'm like, oh, I'm so glad this is my name. I'm so glad this is my name. I'm grateful that I got to go on this evolution of having a complicated relationship with it because of the spaces I was in, and the way that people talked about that name, and the way that people treated it, and the way that people were a little shitty. But anyway, we move. And like, now to be able to be like, I'm Makambe. Side conversation. If you have a name that you feel like is hard to pronounce, first of all, no, it's not. Like, it's learnable. Even if like Makambe is not technically the exact pronunciation that I think my grandmother would have had, right? So like on my dad's side, the K's and the G's kind of, it's supposed to be Marambe, right? But that's not exactly how I'm saying it. And I say Makambe, but however it is that you want to say your name, may you have ownership over that, and may you teach people. And so like, I teach people my name, and I tell them like, hey, if you forget just because it's a name that you've never heard before, please don't hesitate to ask me, and I'll learn your name as well. And people were able to learn Beyonce's name. They didn't meet a lot of Beyonces before Beyonce. So why can't you name Makambe? It even rhymes. No commentary about Auntie Beyonce right now. I'm processing some things. I'm processing some things about Giselle. I'm processing. But I think that's all I need to say. Those are my reflections on integrity, on how that manifests through my name, and how I am setting and continuing to reignite the intention to honor her through my name, which is her name, and honor myself, and just remind myself of like what it looks like to do manners, and what it looks like to do manners that is defined by my own definition of manners. It's not necessarily about being buttoned up. It's not about not being a shenanigan or feeling like you can't express yourself fully. Like, I am a shenanigan. When I shenan once, I will shenan again. But it's just about walking in right relationship with that part of myself. And I felt really called today to offer that reflection. Yeah, I'm gonna go and rehearse 95 plays right now. I love you. Talk to you soon, and bye.